One of my first experiences out after I graduated from college was I moved from Nebraska, where I graduated from University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and I moved to Southern California. I took a job with an electronics company, and they were the largest distributor of electronic cash registers in the world. And it was an entry-level job, and I thought, well, I don't have anything else going on right now. I'm going to go give this a shot. And this experience was my first exposure to just a passion I have for always trying to improve whatever situation I'm in. Like, how can we make this better? What can we do differently? How do we improve the situation so that tomorrow's outcome is better than today? It's just always been something that has been a powerful driver for me. So I took this job as a credit manager, which was a fancy way to say I audited all of the accounts receivable for all these different corporations. Like 7-Eleven had these cash registers at every one of their locations. So every 7-Eleven across the country, I was responsible for auditing their invoices and making sure that they were current, taking care of any other discrepancies that existed. And this credit manager position was there for, I think, since the early stages of this company. And like I said, they were the largest distributor of electronic cash registers in the world, so it was a pretty big operation. So this was a full-time endeavor, and I had just replaced somebody who'd left for unknown reasons. So I took the job, and I went through all these receipts, and there were stacks of them, and I thought, well, I wonder what's causing all these discrepancies. Why are these outstanding balances always here? Why are there always billing errors? So I worked hard to try to find the root cause of that so that could be corrected, communicated with the client, and then have a smoother interaction between our billing process and our accounts receivable. And I thought, that's the task at hand. So I worked at that job for about 9 months. And I'll never forget, because I went into my boss one day, and I'll never forget, she had an office right outside of where I was stationed. And I went into her and I said, Lori, I'm done. And she said, what do you mean you're done? I said, my job's done. All of the account receivables had been cleaned up. I had worked with every one of their administrative contacts for our clients and corrected the misunderstandings or the processes that were out of alignment, so that the billing was clear, the accounts receivable were clear, and the discrepancies went away. So I basically worked myself out of a job, and I thought, isn't this great? We've now figured out how to eliminate this position because we no longer have these discrepancies, or at least reduce it down to just a minimal effort that maybe could be assigned to somebody else as more of a spare time activity than a full-time job at this company. And they didn't know what to do. They just said, can you sit there? So I sat at my desk waiting for something to go wrong. And after a couple of weeks, so you can imagine, I just couldn't do that anymore. And I said, there's got to be something, or else I'm just going to have to move on. I can't come to work and sit at an empty desk all day. I mean, that would drive anyone crazy. So the president of the company, it was a Japanese company, came to me and said, I heard what you did, and we'd like you to open up our inventory system. And this is back when computers were still a pretty new thing. And so I set up an inventory system and started getting involved in the purchase of their equipment. And not long into it, was probably about 6 months, I had set up this spreadsheet where we were tracking the purchases and all of the inventory. And I realized that I was then placing orders for roughly 10% of their cost of goods sold. And this was still my entry-level position. So I thought, they need to know about this. So I went into this big boardroom with all of the leadership from the Japanese company, and most of them were English as a second language. So they spoke Japanese when I was in the room, and then I made my report and said, I basically have now brought this entire inventory system together. What should we do with this? Because there's enormous opportunity in better managing the purchasing process and also accounting for the inventory. And I found that I would make my presentation, they would have their discussion amongst themselves without me included. And then the bottom line was, they came back to me and said, you're trying to innovate, you're trying to process improve. We don't want that. And we are going to do this the way we've always done that. And I found that just impossible to tolerate, because whether it be the accounts receivable job that I worked myself out of or the inventory system. I always saw a vision for, we can make this so much better. Let's think about the process. Let's clean up the way we're doing things and help people understand that by doing the process improvement together, we can be more efficient, we can save money, and everyone's going to understand this better. And when I was met with, I'm sorry, we just want to keep doing it the same old way, I wasn't able to tolerate that. And a couple weeks later, I submitted my resignation and went out and looked for opportunities where I could actually do things like that and feel the reward of it. And I wanted to work with people and environments that also appreciated and were engaged in that same sort of alignment. So it was an interesting early learning about what I needed to do and where I needed to be. So it was not the best experience, but it was a great learning experience in the long run.